Man, welcome this morning to another episode of the BounceBack Podcast. Amen. This is Johnny Wyatt. We're here where we are learning how to live, grow, and find our way back because we're bouncing back. Amen. As a pastor, coach, and teacher, I help you navigate faith, relationships, and the real challenges of life. And today, amen, my partner's back. Paulette is with me.
Hi, everybody. I am Paulette Wyatt. I'm an educator, a wife, a mother, and I'm passionate about creating spaces where people can feel supported, seen, and safe enough to grow. And I'm happy to be here with you guys back again in community with everyone. And I'm looking forward to this week's episode.
Yeah. What brings you back this week?
Spring recess. Woo!
Okay. Yeah.
Shout out to all my educators. If you are on spring recess, enjoy it. You deserve it.
Okay. Amen. So we're talking about something real today. Or we talk about something real every week, but today I think we want to talk about something that is when I say real, I mean like we all face it, right? And sometimes we don't realize it's going on until we diagnose it. And that's why we're here today. So we're here to talk about what happens when you're both growing, right? We're going to talk a little bit about relationship today. As we discuss relationship, we're going to talk about the dynamics of what happens when you're both growing, but not at the same pace. Not at the same pace. Before we get into our story, I'm going to let Paulette share today a little bit about how this looks for her. I think we have to start here, right? Part of being human is growing, right? From the minute we're conceived, not even the minute we're born, the minute we're conceived is growth, right? And then when you stop growing, or when the growing process slows down, right? I didn't know the sun was gonna burst into me like okay. So I'm gonna deal with it, and then when Paulette talking, I'm gonna fix it. But what we don't realize is what we understand naturally is that from the moment we're conceived, we're growing almost until the moment we pass away. And one of the ways we know that we're on a decline is because it's more aging than growth, right? That's something like you notice as you get into your midlife that you're still growing and developing and blah, blah, blah. So part of being human is growing, and not just from childhood to adulthood. So we know about the childhood to adulthood, the rapid growth pace. Like in the early stages, growth is rapid. From the moment we're conceived to the moment we're born, it's rapid growth. In 9 months, you go from a one-cell organism to boom, this human person with millions, maybe billions of cells. And then from there, you grow into this little 21-inch baby, maybe 8 pounds, 7 pounds, 6 pounds. Some people are prenatal to whatever, how many pounds each of us are, right? But that's not the extent of growth. Part of growth is continuing to grow into adulthood and then through adulthood. So there's a psychologist I've read in the past, and somebody I lean on in ministry to help me understand how to deal with people who are trying to grow spiritually. His name is Erik Erikson. He doesn't actually talk about the spiritual component of it, but others have gleaned onto the psychologist Erik Erikson, who talks about this in a real way, that the development doesn't stop when you become an adult. Development just changes form. So when you're younger, growth looks like learning who you are,
right?
Learning your ABCs, learning how to use your hands, learning how to talk to people, and just the basics of being ordinarily human and how to function in your spaces, like your family space, your church space, your home space. And so we know we're growing in that when we're younger, right? Growth looks like who you are, learning who you are, learning who others around you are, learning your environment, your culture. But then as an adult, growth looks like something different, right? Growth and me and you can say like, right, we got married and we thought the growth was we was good. You know, you think you
I
get
was
married,
grown.
yeah, you think you grown, and you are to a degree. But
Right.
like me and you have been saying this year as we crossed a different milestone that we grown for real. And as
Mm,
we get older, we're gonna feel more and more of that until we're not here. So as adult, growth looks like learning how you love and developing in
right.
how you love. That's part of our story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learning how to handle pressure, right? Lord
Mm,
knows I haven't been great at that, right? Growth, you laughing at me. Growth is learning how you process loss because there's
right.
some things you can't learn until you go through it.
Mm,
So what I've learned a lot about for me in terms of growth is there's a difference between learning and growing
right.
for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I've learned I can learn something
Mm-hmm.
actually grow until I experience it or until I integrate it into my own life. So
Right.
for me, a major part of growth for me is actually integrating the things that I've learned. So it's
Mm,
learning how you love or growing in how you love.
right.
Even right now, I have to be careful to say growing instead of learning because the default is always learning. But
Ah,
learning is not necessarily growing, right? So you grow in how you love, you grow in how you handle pressure,
mm-hmm.
you grow in how you process loss. I
Mm,
always thought because, and I'm gonna let you tell the story, but I remember this one time I read this book on leaders and how they lead in a church setting,
right.
uh, how to be how to not let the anxiety affect the congregation. I
Mm,
read it, I understood everything practically. So I thought because I read it that I can navigate. And the truth is, I read the book and still led anxiously, right?
wow.
Because hadn't integrated, I hadn't grown into
Right.
the process. So I had to learn how to process loss, how to build relationships, how to lead, how to grow,
Mm,
not just learn, but how to grow in processing loss, how to grow in
right.
building relationships, right? I'm a
Mm,
life coach and a pastor. And so I know how to build relationships, but I still have to grow in building relationships. And then finally, and probably most profoundly, is how you make meaning out of your life, growing and how
mm,
to make meaning out of life. And that's something we could talk about a little later about the questions I ask now instead of not asking.
mm.
Anyway, before we continue, I want if this is blessing you, if this podcast has been a blessing, or if you are enjoying what we're going to talk about today, please like, share, subscribe, let someone know we're on. Okay, but as we continue, I want you to remember this: even when we're grown, we're still
Mhm.
becoming.
Right.
Even when we're grown, we're still becoming. So this becomes a challenge. The growth doesn't happen at the same pace for everybody. That's what
Right.
Paulette's going to help us talk about today. So we
Mm-hmm.
all agree that we grow. The tough part is that when we're in relationship with each other, whether it's a marital relationship, whether it's people living in the same house, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's leadership in the same organizations, that we're not all growing together.
Right.
Right. So growth doesn't happen at the same pace for everybody. It doesn't happen in childhood. We see that in childhood. Again, we see that in childhood. Somebody could be 3 months older, and
It's more visual. Yeah.
that 3 month difference, people can
You can
see
see it.
the just 3 months.
That's the surface
Um,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, right. But the deeper stuff, people don't
Right.
understand that sometimes it's not just a 3 month gap. Um, Sometimes it's an experiential gap. Sometimes it's a time gap. But yeah, so when you're in relationship, that's where things get complicated. So we want to
Right.
talk about that. So um, when we look back at our journey, we weren't just growing up, we were growing at different places, different
Right.
spaces, different areas, and different times. And one of the clearest places we saw that was in our educational and vocational journeys, right? Like we were two different, we've always kind of, um, you wanted to talk about this because I think for us, this may be, there's other areas, but for, I was, as you were talking and sharing about this was probably perhaps the biggest space and place. So I want to give you a chance to just kind of share, share your let me talk a little bit about that season, the vocational educational journey we took.
Well, yes, we were talking about the topic for this week's episode. When you mentioned, growing at different pace, that's what stood out to me, like our education and vocational journey. When we first got married, we were both working. We were both working in corporate America. You just got your bachelor's. I had just started a really good job, so good that I didn't finish my degree because I just was married and I had a lot of things going on, and it was challenging for me in school. And so I continued at my job and I continued to grow. And a few years in, I remember you decided that you wanted to go to seminary to get your MDiv, your Master's in Divinity, and that was about 5-6 years in when you really really went for it. And at some point, you had made the decision that you were going to go into school full time. And so, in order for you to do that, one person to be in school full time, another person had to be working because we need to pay the rent, and we had two children, we had babysitting costs, and we just had a lot of responsibilities. And so, I remember this moment. There is this time during that was a time when I was working. We had the two kids, so we had financial responsibilities. And to be honest with you, in that season, it was pretty hard for me because I felt that as you were going to seminary, you were meeting new people. You had a whole new set of friends. Growing up in church, we only had the church bubble of friends. At least, some did but for a lot of us in ministry, we only had the church bubble. Those were the relationships we nurtured and we created, but you were like stretching out, and you had a new set of friends, you had a new set of professors, you started traveling. I remember you went to Ghana for a missionary trip, South Africa, and you were doing a lot of conferences just all over the world. And it was challenging for me because I felt stuck, you know.
Mhm.
I didn't finish my degree. So, in my mind, who else is going to hire me because I don't have my degree? So I really can't go anywhere. We have responsibilities, and I remember watching you just grow with this new community, something you were passionate about that you enjoyed doing, and it was pretty hard for me. I felt pretty stuck. But what I didn't realize, looking back in retrospect, what I didn't realize is that my season, that my time was coming. I didn't, you didn't, and when you're in it, you don't think that it's coming for you. You just really, I was focusing on the present. And the present was I was working, managing the kids, and Johnny was exploring this new life. And I think at one point I started thinking about going to school because for me, I felt that there was more to life than just this. I didn't know what it was, but there was more to it than just this. And so I prayed about it. I had a wonderful community. Shout out to Agape Tabernacle Fellowship at the Well. Um,
International, yeah.
National Fellowship at the Well. I went to this women's conference, and I was just surrounded by a whole bunch of sisters that really poured into me. And I remember at one point I said, well, I'm going to try to go back to school. I'm going to go back to school. And that alone was a big challenge for me. It was a big hump because school was something that I looked at that I failed at. And so to go back, courage. And I remember in 2015, I took my first class just to get my feet wet. And by 2016, my job laid me off, and I had the opportunity to go all in. And then that's when my journey began. Um, and what's interesting is while I was stepping into my journey, you went back to school. I have got my degree in I think I started in 2016. I started,
This is
and then
another going back to school. This is not the same going back. This is a different going back to school.
no, this is while I was getting my bachelor's, you went back to get your doctorate degree.
So this is another going back to school. Okay.
Right. So we were like both moving at the same pace. We were moving we were both on the same track. And you had went back to get your doctorate. And so at this point, we were both growing, but still not always at the same pace, right? Because my process in education was different than your process, where I was, in classes with lecturers and you were like doing research. And by 2023, we both hit that milestone. We actually crossed over to, that same graduating year. You earned your doctorate degree. I earned my bachelor's, and even after that, I kept going to get my master's in 2025. And this is where this is what stood out to me. What I learned is just because it's not my season right now, it doesn't mean that my season isn't coming. Okay. Sometimes you don't feel that it's your season now, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your season is not coming. And so that was our story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So when I hear you tell that story, I'm very aware that it started from almost from the first couple of months when we got married till today, right? So
yeah,
this is not a 5-year journey. This is like the whole marriage journey. Because like you said, that was last year when you got your master's degree, right?
2025. And the first time, right. The open house, I remember going to the open house at Nyack College with you right before was it around
9/11? Yeah, right before.
Yeah. Your first semester was fall of the year.
Yeah, so we got married. So
at June, yeah.
Yeah, right. You said so much. Why does that particular part of our journey? Because to me, there's many different layers to our story. Why does that part stick out to you as areas of where we both were growing, but at different paces? Why does that stick out to you?
I felt because from the beginning, you were always a few steps ahead of me when it came to education. I felt that everybody was 2 steps ahead of me. Sometimes life will make you feel so isolated that you think it's just you. And it's like, I thought that everybody had their degree. And I was like the lone person out there who didn't have my degree. So I always felt that, you were 2 steps ahead of me. And so I always felt that I was trying to keep, catch up to keep up with you, Okay. But yeah, that's really why. That's why it stands out to me. And just going back to school was a big a risk for me, because it was something that I had to emotionally, mentally heal from and be okay with before I was able to go back and face college.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Like thanks for sharing that part of your story, because like we've been married now for almost 25 years, and hearing you tell your side of the story, I never really saw it from that point of view, because for me it didn't feel like I was ahead of anybody, to be honest with you. Yeah. So yeah, because there's another question I was going to ask, but now my 50-year-old brain can't remember the question I was going to ask. Yeah.
You're 3 months ahead of me. You went into, I
remember that. I remember the question. Go ahead.
Yeah, you went to other earlier grades ahead. We were the same age, but you've always been.
So you feel like that's been since even before we got married, in terms of me growing. Okay, when it came to okay. Yeah. When it came to that, how do you think that impacted our relationship? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about how people could be together and they're growing at different paces. They're both growing. It wasn't that you wasn't growing. Right. You may have felt that way sometime.
Right.
But what I noticed in your journey is something I would notice in my own journey. Right. So anyway, how do you think that affected and impacted us as a couple from the start, even before we got married?
It definitely impacted us from the start. I mean, because I didn't think I was.
Excuse my dog, everybody. He's going
crazy. It's early morning, and yeah. He's socializing. It really impacted our relationship, because I really thought that. Okay, I'm gonna be transparent. I really didn't think that I was, because I had a poor self-image of myself. I didn't think I was not worthy, but smart enough to be around you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So I was very intimidated. You have a brilliant mind, you're inquisitive, you're always learning.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And so I just never thought that I was on that level. I really didn't. And so as you're growing, I mean, so I felt like you were 10 steps ahead of me already from the jump. So by the time you get to NIAC, I mean to college, right? That's another 10 steps. So it's like you're all
Mm.
the way down there and you're experiencing life, and I'm here. Like, I admire the fact that you've always known what you wanted to do, and you went and you're a go-getter and you do it. And I it took me time. It took me a longer time to figure out what it is for me to do,
Okay.
how to go about doing it. Mhm.
Okay. So that's amazing.
Why is it
I
amazing?
Yeah, because as you're hearing it, like I felt like I was stepping into my calling. I was stepping into something I believed in my calling, but I wasn't always clear, right? So like I remember in 2001 we got married. I wasn't even sure that that's what I was supposed to do, right? It was law school or seminary. That was that
Right.
that first year.
We still got the book up there.
So yeah,
LSAT
and
book.
and and a year before I just I had graduated in '98, but I still had like one class left, and I didn't go back until I wanted to finish before we got married. So I went back and I finished that class up so I can be done with it. Um, but in no way did I feel complete and fully grown. You see what I'm
Wow.
saying? You see what I'm
Really?
saying? Yeah, I never felt like I had kind of fulfilled my purpose. It took me a long time. I think part of the reason I was in school is because I felt like I had unfinished business for myself and for my people who believed in me and had potential. But I hear what you're saying. But
Mhm.
what I wanted, I think there's some similarities in I think first it starts with a little growth. Always starts with a discomfort. Like
Right.
this space that I'm in doesn't fit me anymore, and I need to break loose out of it. Right.
Right.
So that's what causes growth. Um, Sometimes you growing and the place you're in is too small for you, and you gotta leave. So that's what happens when you're comfortable in your mother's womb, but there comes a point where you're too big and that environment can't handle you anymore, and so you have to grow beyond it.
Yeah.
And maybe in this area of my life, I've always been maybe a little ahead of some folk, but but so I was walking in. I think, and yeah, I was walking in purpose, and I think for you, what I've learned and our walking together is once you found your purpose, then it was like you was on the fast lane. So I think part of growth in some areas, educational, vocational, even
Mhm.
relational, no, educational, vocational, things that give life meaning, we first have
Right.
to find our purpose. And then
Right.
once we find our purpose, and so one of the things we can help each other do, because one of what I think I found my purpose much earlier
Right.
than you did, and then that helped me to be focused on where I wanted to go.
Right. From jump.
But
Right.
but there have been times I've lost the same purpose and got stunted
Mm.
and had to reset, right?
Right.
So while the other person, so one of the things I noticed as well is while I was following purpose, you were carrying me, right?
Right.
So you were the person carrying the cost. I found my purpose. I went to seminary. The first time I went to seminary, I was still working. In 2001, I worked while I did it, so I did it part time. And then what happened? Eventually, what took place is, excuse me, I got noise and background noises today. Everybody's home today, y'all.
Well, they're leaving.
Yeah. One of the things that happened is that first time in 2001, I went to school and I just did one semester. 9/11 took place.
Right.
Then TJ was on the way,
Right.
and so I had to pause. And so I took one class in 2001, and then from 2001 until 2000 and the summer of 2008, I knew I wanted to go back, but I
Right.
got my pace had got slowed. It was
Mm.
one class. And I think that was God directed because the people that I needed to be in community with weren't there yet. The
Mm.
professors wasn't there. Dr. Austin Lucas wasn't there. She was at NYTS. She wasn't
Right.
at Alliance. Dr. Carlo, I think, was on sabbatical the first time I went there.
Mm.
So he wasn't in place. Dr. Robinson wasn't a professor yet. So all the people that God had
Wow.
destined for me to meet weren't in the place. And so I was ready, or I knew where I needed to be, but the
Mm-hmm.
place wasn't ready.
Wow.
So it wasn't, it was another 7 years before I went back. And then that journey took place because I was, again, I was going to go back part time. But the economy, that was around the time of the Lehman Brothers and the different banks that were closing and
Yep.
stuff like that. So um, it wasn't that I left work as much as I followed the opportunity
Right.
when they said we're no longer, we're going to lay y'all off and here goes a package. And so the package was able to help, you know. So God was opening up doors. And I think the same thing happened for you. After a while, you outgrew corporate America.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that's key for everybody to understand that once a person finds purpose, you want to make sure you're aligned and connected to somebody that's going to help you bear the cost.
Right.
So I thank you for how you helped me bear the burden while I followed my purpose. And then I had to I had to reciprocate when you found your purpose. Right.
Yeah.
So for me, it was from like 2009 to 2012. For you, it was 2016
16.
until
2020.
2024.
20. Yeah.
Yeah,
24.
24, right. So we both had these journeys where the other person had the support. Now we both have grown, and there's still some more growing to do. I think we
Right.
want to do some other things, and I might do some other things, but we've seen the um, we've seen what it means to have purpose,
Right.
what it means to grow with somebody. It's not just that people are growing at different paces, but we have to support each other as we grow, right?
Right.
Because growth takes structure, growth takes a womb,
Mm-hmm.
right? So even, you know, when we're in our mother's womb, we understand that. But even outside of that, we need to be cocooned. Like
Right.
the butterfly, before they become a butterfly, goes into a cocoon, protective kind of. So any growing that's going to happen needs to be done in a space that's safe. And so thank you for helping me making my space safe, because of course people are looking at you funny while I'm in school,
Oh yeah.
right? And
A lot
talking
of people
about
that
me and talking
he gonna
about
do
us.
what and you gonna do
Yeah,
what?
yeah. But
Okay.
you supported that. And but look at us now, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? And then the same thing, you know,
Right.
the same thing with you going back to school. And I
She
think
took
it's
a
I
what?
think it's
Take
I
what?
think it's I think it's more I think it's more acceptable when you did it and I was working, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because of the dynamic. But let's expand it a little bit. I think that what makes this even more real is that it wasn't just happening in one area of life, right? So
Right.
there are emotional seasons.
Right.
Um, I remember the time I was dealing with grief, anxiety. I was dealing with learning how to be a pastor and holding and handling,
All at the same
learning
time.
learning to be a pastor. Yeah, like I was vocationally trained, and not even through seminary. People always think seminary is some kind of place that builds pastors. It doesn't. It just teaches you certain skills, but you learn pastoring through apprenticeship.
Right.
So I learned by supporting. Anybody want to grow in ministry, you have to support somebody that support the person you want to be. So I remember when I was growing up, it was Brother Thomas who I wanted to be like. So that's who I supported. And then when I became a pastor, when we moved to the Bronx, I supported my dad as a pastor. So eventually I was going to be whatever you support, you become.
Right.
Help me, Lord Jesus. Amen. Okay. So you're trained and you're prepared, but you're not emotionally grown until you get into that space. And so I had a lot of emotional development to do. And I think in terms of in those spaces, sometimes you were ahead of me there. There was sometimes where you had to tell me that, yeah, you had to help me communicate. You had to help me um, not get stuck in certain feelings, right?
Mm.
And then learn how to navigate that. And then for me, the biggest thing I would say would be spiritual seasons, right? So the same way you felt like I was ahead of you educationally, I felt that way spiritually, right?
Mm.
Like you got saved at 10, I got saved at like 14. Um, while I was kind of wilding and trying to figure out myself at 21, you got the baptism of the Holy Ghost, right? Like you was experiencing God and anointed and speaking in tongues, like all that. And I felt like, so in one, so I think that's needs to be, I think everybody needs to hear that. I think you need to hear that, right? Like, so whereas somebody may be ahead of you in one layer of life and
Right.
growth, you're ahead of somebody, right? There was
Right.
no doubt. You would get up and
And I
you would be
never looked
doing
at
your
it that
ministry.
way.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
would be doing ministry and you would just be doing it on another different level, right? So like while everybody else was just trying to do church, you were on a different level. You were in different choirs. You were experiencing different things, and you were bringing that back to the church. And so, you like the church you was a part of, you were supporting that church in a way that some of us couldn't support it. For me, until I went to the Bronx. When I went to the Bronx is when I started to catch up with you, but I needed the same kind of space to grow, right? So that's a key for growth is like, so a key to growth is structure for growth. The
Right.
other part of growth is space to grow.
Right. That's really, yeah. I mean, like you asked me earlier, you said, you asked me if I felt, that did I feel ahead or behind? And, um, I did felt behind, but now I know that I know the importance. Looking back, what I would tell someone is, the season is being prepared. And
Right.
so you have to be patient in that preparation, because it's like you said, it has to be aligned. It's very important for you
Yeah.
to be aligned and
Yeah.
connected to people, places, and spaces
Yeah.
that aligns with what your purpose is to make it
Yeah. So
meaningful.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm done. To make it meaningful. That's all.
Yeah. So it took me a long time before, in terms of the spiritual piece, where I felt like I was on your level, right?
Really.
Yeah. So I think one thing I would encourage people to do is not get caught up, because I think we live in a world that tells you that you don't deserve people unless you're on their level. The truth
Right.
is
And I believe that
that
for years.
the truth is that you might not be on there. There may be some truth to that in one area of life, but that one area of life doesn't equate to the whole areas of life. So I may have been ahead of you in terms of my purpose, vocationally, educationally. And I think being in a space where you had me there to show you what it looked like helped you to grow in that area.
Right.
That's another thing that helps growth, having a model, right?
Right. Yes.
But then I would have to say the same thing spiritually, right? To see you, I couldn't be complacent with somebody who is so deeply spiritual. Yeah, people that's born in March like to say that they have a different kind of spiritual. Like,
No, I never
not
say
you. I'm not
that.
saying you.
Not
But
me.
my dad be saying that kind of
Okay.
stuff. You know what I'm saying? He say that stuff.
Not
He
this
born in
March.
March. He born in March like you. So, but I will say that helped me to say I can't be complacent here spiritually. So I had to grow. I had to grow. I had a purpose. And I understood my purpose vocationally, even my calling vocationally. But and I know I was going somewhere, but you and others like you, helped me. And I think we were in two different environments too. So the church I was
That's
a part
true.
of was a
Yes.
church where they highlighted education. The church
Yes.
you was going at was where they highlighted spirituality.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
That's true.
So you grow up in your environments,
Yeah.
right? To be successful in my church, you had to be educated. To be successful in Paulette's church, her youth leader was on top of them to receive and experience. When we got together, we helped each other grow in the
True.
areas where we, so amen. So even when it looked like I was ahead in one area, I was behind in another. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let me ask you a couple. Let me ask you a couple things, and I'll see where we are. And did it feel like you were out of sync in more than one area? Like, so you talked about the educational, vocational. Were there other areas where you felt out of sync?
Are there other areas where I felt out of sync? Besides the vocational and educational area. Yeah. I mean, like, just learning how to be resilient.
Okay.
I I'm a person that needs someone to push me. And so I would give up easily. And so I think I learned a lot. I learned how you modeled resilience for me.
Okay.
Um and that could go from, I would have probably quit my job years ago. If, or got fired years ago when I was working, but you modeled your work ethic really modeled resilience for me.
Mm.
So yeah, just family relational dynamics. Yeah, I think you're more mature, how you able to manage your emotions. Oh man, yeah, you were
Really?
yeah, you can.
Okay.
You're Mr. Cool. We don't know what's going on under there, but on
Okay.
top,
Okay.
me, everything, you can see it on my face, you can see it on my sleeve, you're gonna know. I can't hide it, you're gonna know.
Mm.
But you don't know. And so learning how to, cosmetically manage my emotions, yeah, or not even let your emotions take the best of you. Those in those areas, I think I learned a lot of that from you. I was behind. And like you said, you modeling that and talking me through it when I'm trying to, because it's one thing. I had one therapist told me, and it's true, we were talking and she said, yeah, the literature is great, reading it is wonderful, integration is another.
Right.
you know just doing that in real time is a whole nother level. And so you not only modeled it for me, but you were able to help me integrate it into my life. So
Okay. Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. For me, I never feel like this is a really good topic because for me, I struggle. I never compare myself in a positive way. So like, not just me and you, not just in relationship, not just in a marital relationship, but
Right.
in relationship with kids, with our peers. I've
Hmm.
always felt like there's more for me to grow, right? So, and I think some of them would say in some other areas that are not as measurable, because I've heard them say that they feel like we're ahead, me and you.
Really.
But like I think of people economic, like I feel like some people are economically ahead. We chased our
Right.
purpose. I think when you chase purpose,
We joke about it all the time.
yeah, when you chase purpose, the cost of it is sometimes
Yeah, it's true.
you don't excel because purpose doesn't have a purpose. Real true purpose doesn't have a career amount.
And we've
Yeah,
struggled with that, like you said. You're right, as a couple, in terms of looking at our other
yeah,
counterparts. And, wow, they got this, they got that.
yeah.
They traveling, they living their best
Hmm.
life.
Hmm.
And and so, but like looking back in
But
retrospect,
the childhood piece though, like we raised our children. Our children are out of the house.
yeah,
Where some of them are just starting, right? So
right,
there's a cost to it. You know what I mean? Like
right,
so
yes,
if you chase if you chase um it's about prioritizing where you want to grow.
right.
So
And there's
me and
no
you,
right or wrong way, right? Would you say, is there a right or wrong way to prioritize where you want to grow? So I wouldn't say just because we figured it out earlier doesn't mean it's wrong when somebody figures it out later, right?
I think
What's your thoughts on that?
I think that's a really good question. So I would say this: if we follow we're not as communal as we used to be. So
Right.
in our circle,
Yes.
there's a path that most of us were taught that we didn't follow, and
Mm,
so because we didn't follow it, in some areas we're behind where we should be ahead, right?
right.
So what me and
Okay.
you did is me and you followed the path that was kind of the growth path that was laid out, and then nuanced it, So we said, okay, we're following the path. We got married.
Mm-hmm.
We had children early because that's what we were supposed to do
Right.
because of the life path we were on, the Christian life path.
Right.
Suggested that we do some things earlier. It challenged us in certain areas because we weren't as mature. We didn't get to have the kind of fun that people that young want to have.
Right.
But people don't realize that youth is not for fun.
Mm.
Teenage youth is, but the 20s youth is for working.
Is working and building.
working and building.
Yeah.
So if you're playing in your 20s when you're supposed to be working in your 20s, when you get to your 40s, when you're supposed to be resting, you're still working, right? Right. So some of it is right. There's no right and wrong. I agree
Right.
with
There's
you
no
there.
right and wrong.
There's
Right.
no right and wrong. But Eric Erickson and those that I'm very familiar with the Erickson literature, and
Right. Mm-hmm.
each stage of life has its goals, has its
Yes.
challenges,
Yes.
and it's suggested that there's some things you want to pass. There's some milestones you want to make so that when you get to the next stage, you're whole in the next stage.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, and you because if not, you'll be looking back. A lot of people that you see that's older, like in the 60s and stuff, and the midlife crisis is something completely different. I don't think this has anything to do with the midlife crisis. I think everybody is going to go through that no matter what choices you make.
Right.
But there are some, when you look back on life, at the end of your life, you're supposed to be generative. You're supposed to have the kind of life that people want to be around you, number one.
Yes.
You have something to offer people, not necessarily financially, but sometimes financially, right? Because you've made the investment and now you're bearing fruit on a life lived. And then, but it's not just financially. It's financially, it's wisdom. It's open doors. You can open doors for people.
Yes.
Your life is supposed to be generative. But if you don't do certain things in certain times, you'll look back over your life and you see some people, instead of being generative, they're bitter because they don't have anything to give,
right?
Because they didn't focus on growing at the right time in the right stages. Right? So there's no right time to grow vocationally,
right?
But there is a right time to grow relationally.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
There's certain lessons you have to learn as a teenager about relationships, right? And then when you become a 20-year-old, you have to learn that you can't be the dependent anymore.
Right.
That you have to start to become independent. And now, even if you're in the same home, you have to participate in a different way.
Right.
You have to contribute.
To contribute, yes.
You have to contribite, right? Yes. So each stage demands a different level of growth, and we need to be aware of that. And maybe that's something my church, because I'm sure in some churches they teach it better, but that's where you have cohorts, right? Yeah. So me and you were in different cohorts,
right?
That's why you have a cohort that you're growing with. That's why you have, because cohorts grow together.
Yes.
When you get married, you grow together,
right?
And that's something that has to be understood. That I'm not just growing by myself. I am, right? But I'm growing with you,
right?
And so I have to wait on you. You have to wait on me, and something else. We have to be patient with each other. There are things we have to do at these different stages that help us to grow. So that's my answer to that question. Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Did I answer it well?
Yes, you did. You did.
Okay. Were them what helped you stay committed in that season? In the season that you talked about earlier, vocationally and educationally, what helped you stay committed?
What helped me? What helped me? Commitment. Commitment is what helped me stay committed. Being committed to being committed to my marriage, being committed to my family.
That's true.
Yeah, that's what helped me stay. Commitment is what helped. If the answer, honestly, I love you, and that's all wonderful. But at the root of it all, it was being committed to my family.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. No, the fact you said, I remember when I was seminary, there was this lady I met. She was much older. She's not much older, but she was older than me, maybe about 10 years older. And she had been married by that point. She had been married a while. I told her, "What's the secret?" She says, "There's no secret. You just decide to stay." Right? It's just a decision you make. No matter how bad it gets, right? So, how do you stay committed? You just make a decision to be committed. I think it's as simple as that. That no matter what, unless something, there are things that are just too much. But for the most part, I'm in this to win this. I'm in this to the end. You were gonna say something.
Oh, I was gonna say, and to add to that, and I also believe that what we were building mattered, even when it didn't feel balanced. So even though you were in school full time, and I was working, I I knew there was something bigger for you. It was bigger than this. It wasn't going to stop at just school. I didn't know what it was, but I knew God had something bigger for you. So I knew what you going to school. I knew it mattered. I know when I was going to school, I was I wasn't going to school just to be going to school. I was going to school to impact lives and families, and so it all mattered. So yeah, believing that what we were building, what you were building separately, and what we were building together, I truly believe that it mattered even when it felt unbalanced. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. That's good. That's good.
Mhm.
So what I hope everyone is understanding is that growth is not linear.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like a roller coaster. Sometimes it's up and then down. Sometimes
Yeah.
you regress. So it's not linear and it's not uniform. It's not one
Right.
size fit all. So Paulette's growth journey, vocational education look different than mine.
Mhm.
My spiritual journey looked different than hers.
Right.
Our psychological health journey was different because we had different experiences. There are some things that I've experienced that Paula hasn't experienced yet because, like, I experienced grief of a loss of parents,
Right.
of one parent. She hasn't yet.
Mhm.
So that's something that she can be prepared for, but she'll never understand until she goes through it. So
Right.
again, growth is not linear. It's not uniform, and we're making a distinction between learning,
Mhm.
experience,
Right.
and growth. Right.
Right.
So you can learn and not grow. You
Mhm.
can even experience and not grow. And
Right.
but the key is that whatever you go through, you grow. You grow from it. And growth means you mature, you develop,
Right.
you become a better you, a more
Mhm.
developed you. I don't like to use that term better, but you become a more whole you, a more healthier you, a more integrated you. Right. That's powerful.
And
All
to
right.
add and to add to that, I also
Mhm.
want to mention too, and something that we don't talk about enough, I think, is sometimes when one person is walking in purpose and the other person is carrying the weight of the purpose. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. We
Sometimes you
talked about that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yes, I'm sorry.
But go ahead, say it.
No, I just wanted to mention that.
Or
It's just
reiterate it. Yeah.
yeah, I'm just I think that's something that it is impacting. It's always impacting the other person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think be clear about that part. That's a good part. My growth journey is impacting another person.
So, for
How?
example, when you were dealing with grief, even though I never experienced it, watching you walk through that and process that from the time she passed to, you know, how
Till
you
now.
deal with it today, it still
Mhm.
impacts me, you know. Yeah, it's still the weight of that still impacts me to some degree.
Okay.
So, yeah. And so all of that prepares me for, whenever I have to
Yeah. Yeah.
go through
Yeah.
that process.
But not just in that way. So what I'm hearing is, it gives you lessons that you could take when it's your turn.
Yes,
But
yes.
also people gotta remember that their growth journey is not something that they're experiencing by themselves,
By
but it's
themselves.
impacting
It's a
people.
ripple effect.
You could be
Yes.
if we don't do it in a healthy way, we hurt people.
Yes.
And so we have to be clear and understand and make sure that our journeys are not our journeys. I mean, some of it there's going to be some pain people have to go through, but at the same time, let's try to grow in a healthy way. And I
Right.
haven't always, none of us have always done that perfectly.
Hmm. But
So
we're still learning.
they're still learning. Yeah, they're still learning because there's no single timeline for becoming. There's no timeline for becoming.
Right.
There's no particular way for becoming. And different pace doesn't mean different purpose, right?
Right.
So because my pace was a little faster than your pace doesn't mean I had a greater purpose. But what I'm learning is that we grow together. Um, we are Paulette and Johnny. But what I also love is that Paulette is Paulette. There's some things about Paulette. Paulette, I think in the past, you know, um, you would probably measure yourself based on who I was, right?
Right.
But now you can measure yourself based on your own journey.
Right.
I can measure myself on my journey, and then we can take pride in each other.
Right.
I could take pride in who you are,
Hmm. And I
right?
take pride in who you are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So formation is not about how you grow, it's about how you grow with people
Mm-hmm.
who are different than you. We are different, right? And I
Right.
think you've seen that as we talked. Okay. Love has to learn how to grow. Learn love has to learn how to hold uneven growth. Okay.
Mm.
That's uneven growth.
Right.
So I think that's another thing we talk about in terms of the grief. That
Right.
we grow and the growth is not uneven, it's not linear, but we have to hold each other until we fully grow.
Right.
I want to add a spiritual layer. This is where the spirit does his work, not
Mm.
just forming us individually, but teaching us how to stay present, patient, and loving. That's some of the things you were talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even when the growth is uneven, even when it's affecting our finances, even when it's affecting our personal relationship, love, not 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 conventional love,
Right.
but that deep spiritual love,
Right.
allowing the spirit to do his work, teaches us to just be committed, like you're saying. So part of being committed, though, means I'm present,
Right.
I'm patient,
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving.
Let patience
It,
have a
it's
perfect,
perfect
perfect
work.
work.
Yeah. That's the scripture you had?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some practical takeaways we want to give you. These three
Okay.
things, and we're gonna because time is running short. Uh, but when it comes to growth, first of all, don't rush people.
Mm.
Right? Don't rush people. I hope you never felt rushed by me, but we shouldn't rush people.
Mm-hmm.
People are gonna grow at their own pace.
Right.
Right? So let patience have her perfect work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what might take me 3 years, and I think my journey was long. So Paulette makes my journey look fast, but when I think about it, it was a long journey. First, you got to figure out your purpose, and then you got to run into your purpose. You may
Mm-hmm.
have felt that your journey was long. What's that noise? Or the people outside doing the lawn or something.
Yep.
Um, yeah, spring is here, and I'm hearing all kind of noises. Um, I don't. I actually think your journey was shorter than my journey
Really?
because because from your time of starting to your time of finishing, the time it took you to finish your undergrad to your master's degree was a shorter, condensed period than my growth.
Hmm.
Because by the time you were ready to grow, you were mature.
Mm.
You were mature, and so you were able to, uh, you know, me. I started college in 1993, and I got my doctorate in 2023. It took me 30 years to go from undergrad to doctorate, right?
I've never thought about
Yeah. So I did undergrad from 93, finished in 98, right? That's a whole nother story. And then I start again in 2001, but it's incomplete. So for me, it's a lot of stops and fits, because what I was always committed to, right, and consistent with was being a husband,
Mm-hmm.
being a good son, and being a good church person, right? Those are my
Mm-hmm.
commitments. So I had to stop and pause and stop, and stop and fit, right? So we don't rush people, let
Right.
people grow at their own pace. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, don't shrink yourself. You want to talk about that a little bit? What
Yeah.
when you
Don't.
hear that?
Yeah. Don't shrink yourself. Your growth matters. So a lot of times, there were times where I felt inferior, and um, even while I was in the process, yeah, I'm going back to school, but I'm still in school. But don't shrink yourself. Take pride in, your process,
Hmm.
because growth means life. When something
Right,
grow when living, what makes something living is growth.
right.
If it's not growing, if it's stunting, something is wrong. So take
Hmm.
pride in that. Know that I'm growing. There goes that my wonderful the growth mindset. I'm
Hmm.
not there yet, but I will
Right,
be there.
right.
So don't shrink. Just know I'm not there yet, but
Yeah,
I'm growing. Yeah.
yeah. Because some people at your age, when you begin to pursue you changed careers completely, and financially you were doing really, really well. So most people would say, "Man, she's making all that money," but you
Yeah.
didn't shrink. You didn't shrink back. You could have said, "It's too late for me. I'm too old now.
Right.
Let me not do this new thing." It's because when you're older, it's a little harder.
It
It's a little bit
is.
more challenging. You got responsibilities.
I was in classes with kids
Yeah.
that were my kids' age. Yeah,
Right. Right.
my son got me out of, help me with my math homework. He was doing
Yeah.
high school algebra. He was helping me with my college algebra. So those I've had friends who say, yeah, I'm not gonna be a teacher. They don't want us. We're too old.
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Right.
And so so
Because
it's
the world will shrink you. The world will try to
the
shrink
world
you.
will shrink you.
So don't shrink yourself. It's never too late.
It's never too late.
Never too late. You're on God's timing, not
Right.
you on, and that's a different kind of timing. Last thing is stay in conversation, which is what we do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not always easy, but we try to stay in conversation. You
Honest
want, honest conversation.
conversation.
That way we could encourage each other.
Right.
We could be blunt about it. We support each other.
Right.
And you have to stay in conversation with your people, not just me and her, but with people that's going to support you. You have so we weren't our only cheerleaders.
Right.
You have other cheerleaders that invest in you. There's people who I couldn't have finished school without them giving money to the cause, right? So,
yes.
And that all of that encourages you. So,
yes.
And again, we're talking about vocational education mostly, but any area of relationship, whether it's raising children, whether spiritual growth, financial growth,
right.
for me and you, that's something that we're still on the path to. Right. And at our age, it seems daunting. But
yes.
In some areas, like, it's looking good. In other areas, not so much. And so
right.
in almost every area of life, you may feel like you're not where you need to be.
Right.
But that's one of the reasons it's good to think generationally.
Yes.
There's some growth that needs to happen generationally so that we're not always starting off. The world will tell you each of us has to start at the starting line, but there's some areas where you shouldn't have to start.
Right.
So I look at this with our kids. Our kids do so well in school.
yes.
But they do well in school because I was the first in my family to go to college.
Right.
Right. My mother didn't go to college. My dad didn't go to college.
Mm-hmm.
I was the first one. So it was a challenge for me. I think it was easier for some of my brothers, right?
Right.
Once I was the first one to go. And then for our kids, they just navigate college so well. And one of the reasons is because they're not starting from scratch. They're starting with our contribution, with our modeling. They saw us go to school.
Right.
So it doesn't look unfamiliar and weird. So that's important. All right.
One thing I do want to say is, and I just want to add to what you're saying, which is amazing, is that to give your relationship room for seasons, right?
Okay.
Everything doesn't have to happen at the same time, but it does need to be honored. So it's important to know that, in your relationship, the longer it is, the more seasons you're going to have. And just, embrace that there's seasons. Seasons begin and they end and they start again. And sometimes there's a lull in between the two. So just embrace and honor the season. So I just wanted to leave that with you.
Okay. All right. And a quick reflection. Maybe the question is, am I frustrated with the pace? Or am I misunderstanding the season? And so you got to answer that for yourself. If you're frustrated with your pace, that's human and that's okay. It's okay. But when you finish, you'll look back and it'll all feel worth it.
Yes.
The finishing is the key. The finishing makes quick pace or slow pace, regardless of the quick or the slow. When you finish, you'll feel fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Paulette can both say that.
Yeah.
And maybe you are misunderstanding the season, and I can attest to that as well. That sometimes I'm misunderstanding a season of pain as a necessary season. I look at every season now as a necessary season. So seasons of mistakes, seasons of failure, seasons of success, all necessary to my human growth. Everything leads to growth. So you're not behind. I have a mentor, and they're really going at it out there, right? I have a mentor that every time I feel like I'm going through something weird, because he's older, he'll say, "You're right on time." You're right. I want to tell somebody this morning, you're right on time.
Amen.
You're right on time. I want to say thank you to Paulette. She's off this week, and she decided to get back on with me. Always love to have you on, sweetheart. You know,
Thank you
we've
for
been
having me.
sharing and talking together. Oh, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me in my growth. Yes, thank you for your support in my growth. Couldn't do it without you. Um, no, that's not what you say. I'm glad you were the one that God chose for me to do it with.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's so
that's
sweet.
that's
Thank you.
that's the real truth. Because it could have been somebody else, and it wouldn't have been as successful. Because God puts you with the person that's going to have the patience for. If you let God do it, He'll help align you with the person that's going to bear your burden as you grow.
Hmm.
Right. And so He sent me Paulette. I don't know if anybody else would have been able to, or not, maybe there would have been some others, but I definitely know she did. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So thank you. All right.
Hmm.
Anything you want to say before we head out?
Just thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for, I thank God for you being the one to help me grow.
Amen.
I've learned a lot from you. And I would just enjoy doing life with you. So, and I know there's much more, we haven't arrived yet. There's still much more to grow.
So much more.
But because of when I look behind, it makes me excited about looking towards the future. Because
Amen.
we made it through there, so we could we can
Yeah.
keep growing. As we
So
go.
let me ask you a quick question.
Sure.
Knowing what you know about the seasons of growth in the past, how would you prepare now for the future? Because we don't know what the future has, right? How would you? What would you do as you see certain things approaching? As you see maybe retirement or
Mm-hmm.
new responsibilities or empty nesting and different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we get to empty nest like our parents got to empty nest because kids today don't look like
Well,
they
did
want to leave.
they? Did our parents
That's
really do?
true. That's true. We didn't leave either, right? Some of us didn't leave. That's true. So it looks different. It looks different. But
Right.
how would you approach the next seasons of growth differently now that you had your past
Well,
experiences?
the blessing of being 50 is
Ooh, you
that
told them your age.
I
Wow.
told him my age. Yes, that's right. I told him my age. Um, the blessing of being 50 is that I have a record.
Okay.
So I can look back and see the proof that I got receipts,
Yeah.
you know. So he brought me through at every stage of my life, not
You brought
just
me through this.
from 10 in my 20s and my 30s, every stage of my life, I can look back. There's always something to refer to say, okay. And, like I remember when our 20s, we'd, be running out of money and I would have major anxiety when it comes to not having money. Scarcity is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
But now it's like, we'll be all right, you know,
Be all right.
you
Yeah.
know,
He'll take
and
care of us.
he's,
Well,
yeah,
he's given us what we need to
yeah.
be resilient and to bounce back. Yeah.
Exactly. So I got my receipts. So
Yeah.
and
When I
I'm
look
sure
back over my life.
we can all look back at our receipts. Yeah.
Yeah.
At
Okay.
one point in your life. So what about
Mhm.
you?
I think you're right. I think it gives you a confidence.
Yes.
First, it gives you. I'm still working. I'm still working through this. I always, probably for the rest of my life, always work with the anxiety of feeling
Mm,
behind because I'm
yeah.
always comparing myself to people that are ahead of me. I think we all have that. So I have to have healthy conversations about myself, to myself, about myself. Right?
Yes.
Like this is my race. We
Healthy
all
self.
have a different race to run.
Yes. Yes.
That's not the growth analogy, but we all have a different
Mhm.
strand of DNA.
Yep.
Everybody grows based on their DNA,
At different rates. Yeah.
right? So whether that's physical DNA, whether that's spiritual DNA, whether that's emotional DNA, whether
Right.
it's cultural DNA, whether it's generational, intergenerational DNA, there's so many things that are informing how we grow. So I'm not going to grow at somebody else's pace because they have a different strands. They have different strands of DNA
Right.
and all those different
So
layers.
there's no need to compare.
So there is a need.
I mean, there's a need to compare,
There is a need to
but we
know,
shouldn't
not
obsess
not
about
co-
it.
not compare in the way that's a race,
Right.
but you have to. you have to know what healthy growth looks like.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So there is
Good
like,
model.
when you're a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
so you know what healthy, there's
Progress monitoring.
yeah,
Right.
there's a word I'm looking for. But yeah, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
There are standards.
Right. That's it.
There are measurements that say this is healthy.
Yeah.
Now, beyond that, there should be no comparison.
Right.
So when yeah, if I was in my house, in my dad's and mom's house, and I was didn't have anything going on at 50, if I was still needed my dad to wake me up and stuff like that, then that's a problem.
Right.
But I'm way beyond that. So at this, I don't need to compare. I don't need to compare measures of success. And look.
But I see what you mean, because when we take our kids to the pediatrician, they ask us, are they meeting their milestones?
That's the word. That's the word.
Are they walking?
Yeah.
They're feeding themselves.
Right.
We all have milestones, general milestones.
So you want to make sure you hit your milestones.
Yes.
But beyond that, there should be no comparison.
Mm-hmm.
We all don't have to be billionaires. Matter of fact, I don't believe in billionaires. I'm one of those. I don't think there should be billionaires. I think you can have millionaires. It's good. Millionaires is fine. But billionaires, that means somebody somewhere is suffering. So too much growth is not good either. Too much growth is cancerous. So we want healthy growth.
Right. Healthy.
And as long as you are healthy and fulfilled, because when we die, nobody's going to remember how much money you had in the bank unless you're Rockefeller. And that's not what I want to be known for. I want to be known for other things than that. So that's it. Making sure I've crossed my milestones, understanding what the milestones are. And then, you're absolutely right. Looking back and just realizing that God's equipped us. Yes. And if we are committed and if we are steady, we'll become what we're supposed to become.
Right.
And if we don't, our kids will. So, yeah. All right. Thank you. Let's get out of here. Take this with you this week. I hope you've learned something this week. Don't rush your growth. Sit with what we talked about today. And remember, don't just hear this. Don't just learn this. Don't just experience this. Become this. Okay. No matter what you're facing, even if it takes time, you can always find your way back. All right. Take care, y'all.
Bye.
You like the other one, but I love this one. I love.
Oh, this is my favorite, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's so churchy.
Yeah, I like church. All right, y'all. We leaving church. Hope y'all had a good one. Can I get an amen?
Amen. Music by Jared Miller.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jared.
Thank you, Jared.